The sea breeze caressed Lauren's skin as she walked barefoot along the white sand beach. The sky, painted in shades of orange and pink by the setting sun, looked like a living painting, and the soft sound of the waves completed the dreamy scene. She was there to enjoy her summer exchange, but she had no idea that this moment would be the beginning of something that would change her life forever. Michael saw her from a distance, sitting on a rock near the water, his gaze lost on the horizon. There was a calmness in his expression, a tranquility that Lauren hadn't seen in a long time. Without realizing it, their eyes met, and the world around them seemed to fall silent for an instant. A new feeling took over her, a mixture of curiosity and something inexplicable, as if she had known him in another life. Summer in Santorini was magical. The narrow streets lined with white houses with blue shutters seemed like secrets waiting to be discovered, and every corner held a new story. Lauren and Michael started seeing each other daily, at first by chance, then by choice. They explored ancient ruins, talked about dreams and improbable futures, and laughed at stories that only youth could make feel so urgent and full of life. There was something different about being with him. Michael had a way of looking at her that made Lauren feel truly seen, as if nothing in the world could come between them. The days unfolded like chapters of a perfect book, with sunsets that seemed to promise they would never be apart. Lauren wondered if that intense connection was real, or just another daydream of a summer far from home. Time, however, never stops. Every shared laugh, every walk under the starlit sky, was a silent reminder that summer, with its promise of eternity, had an end. Lauren felt the shadow of goodbye approaching, even though the warmth of the days and the softness of the nights tried to disguise this truth. Her heart beat faster as she realized how much Michael had become a part of her in such a short time. The island seemed to conspire to make every moment unforgettable. The music from local festivals, the scent of lavender and herbs, and the salty sea breeze formed the perfect orchestra for their budding romance. Yet, amidst all the joy, Lauren couldn't shake a feeling of unease. Perhaps it was the fear of losing what she had just found. In an instant, Santorini was more than just a place. It was the setting of a meeting that would be forever etched in her memory. Lauren couldn't explain it, but a voice inside whispered that this summer would be remembered not only for its colors and laughter, but for the intensity of a love that, once awakened, could never be forgotten. The days in Santorini stretched on in a graceful dance of light and shadow. Lauren and Michael explored every corner of the island as if trying to memorize each detail before the summer said its goodbye. There was an urgency in their steps, a subtle awareness that their time was limited. Together they walked trails leading to ancient ruins, where stones held stories from centuries past, and the wind whispered secrets of old. At night, local festivals turned the island into a mosaic of colors and sounds. Lauren's heart would race as she watched Michael move under the festive lights, a constant shadow of a smile on his lips. There was something about him that made her eyes sparkle, reflecting the warmth growing in her chest. With each shared laugh and exchanged look, the distance between them shrank, and Lauren wondered if she could ever live without that familiar presence. One particularly stunning sunset, with the sky painted in golds and purples, Michael pointed to the horizon as if trying to capture eternity in a single gesture. Lauren felt the warm breeze caress her face, and for a moment the world stood still. It was as if they were alone in the universe, with only the whisper of the waves and the beating of their hearts to remind them that this was real. Yet joy came with a weight Lauren couldn't ignore. The awareness that time was running out hung over each moment, like a subtle shadow sneaking into their lightest laughter. There were promises made under the starry sky, spoken without words but deeply felt. They met in silence, sharing an understanding that needed no explanation. Nights were marked by long conversations by the sea, with the moon casting its silvery glow over the water and their shared dreams. Michael spoke of his passion for architecture, describing cities he wished to build, while Lauren's eyes lit up as she spoke of capturing moments in her photographs. Their dreams intertwined, as if they belonged in the same book whose pages were yet to be written. There were times when Lauren would pause to watch him, mentally capturing each feature of his face like a photograph she wanted to keep forever. The warmth of his skin when their hands met, the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed, each detail became precious, as if she knew that soon only memories would remain. The summer moved with the rush of a flowing river, and the closeness of its end began to weigh more heavily. The starry sky of Santorini, which had witnessed so many of their smiles, now seemed to hold a secret sadness. Lauren felt her heart tighten at the thought of goodbye. Still, there was an unspoken promise between them, a stubborn hope that their story, even threatened by time, could still endure. The end of summer came like an unwelcome visitor, bringing with it the farewell Lauren dreaded. The golden glow of dawn reflected on the calm surface of the sea, but for her, the day began with the weight of news that would change everything. A hastily received letter announced a family emergency. Lauren knew she had to leave earlier than planned, leaving behind not just the island but everything Michael had come to mean to her. The farewell was rushed, with luggage packed hurriedly and a heart in pieces. Michael stood beside her, his expression marked by surprise and the pain of someone not ready to say goodbye. The silence between them spoke louder than any words. There were so many unspoken promises, so many feelings suspended in the air, making the separation even more difficult. The last time their eyes met was under the pale glow of the early morning. The sky began to brighten with the first rays of sunlight, casting a golden hue over the beach. Lauren tried to memorize every detail, the touch of Michael's hand on hers, the way he held her gaze, trying to be strong. But the pain was mutual and inevitable, and with every inch of distance that grew between them, a piece of Lauren's heart broke. Lauren's footsteps echoed as she walked away down the empty streets, while Michael stood still like a statue watching her leave. There was a stubborn hope in his eyes, a silent promise of a reunion, even if uncertain. He believed this wasn't the end. She wanted to believe it too, but the weight of the unknown was relentless. The sound of the sea seemed louder at that moment, as if the island itself wept for them. On the boat, as the coastline of Santorini began to fade on the horizon, Lauren felt the first tear fall down her face. Each passing second took her further from the summer that had changed her life. The memories came in flashes, the laughter under the starry sky, moments of discovery, the whispers of the night breeze. The pain of separation, however, was different. It was a new sharp emptiness spreading in her chest. Michael remained on the beach for hours, staring at the sea that now carried what was left of that summer. He knew that life would take them on different paths, but he didn't want to accept that their story would be left behind in the sands of time. The wind blew stronger, taking with it the silent promise they had made to each other, that somehow they would meet again. On that dawn, Lauren and Michael became part of a past that, although brief, would be eternal in their memories. The island, which had witnessed their time together, now held the silence of an interrupted love, while life pulled them in opposite directions. What remained was a distant hope, as invisible as the first ray of sunlight on the morning of their farewell. Time flowed like a river that rushes forward without looking back, taking with it the urgency and the promise of that summer. Lauren, back in her city, was engulfed by the routine and responsibilities awaiting her. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. Life demanded her attention, and reluctantly she gave in. The spontaneous smiles that once came when she thought of Michael became a distant memory, until, little by little, he became just another chapter of a youth that felt like it belonged to someone else. Michael, on the other hand, returned to architecture, finding comfort in the precise lines of his drawings and the predictable structure of his projects. The sound of the waves in Santorini, once soothing, was replaced by the constant noise of a city that never slept. He threw himself into work with the intensity only those who have something to forget can muster. Yet, there were moments when a familiar scent or a distant melody would make him pause and take a deep breath, as if trying to capture a lost fragment of something that should never have left. The communication between them, once so natural during the summer, became impossible due to circumstances. It was a time when letters and phone calls were not as simple, and the physical distance quickly translated into emotional distance. Time, relentless, filled the spaces they once occupied with new people, new routines, new dreams. And so the summer in Santorini slowly dissolved into a blur, a memory mixed with others, losing its vibrant colors. Years passed, and Lauren became a renowned photographer. Her camera captured moments that froze time, but ironically, she felt that time had stood still for the part of her that still remembered Santorini. In her exhibitions, among photos of landscapes and unknown faces, there were sometimes glimpses of the orange sky and deep blue sea she once knew. Observers called these works poetic, never knowing they were fragments of a past love buried under layers of experiences and years. Michael also moved on, achieving success in his career. His constructions were imposing and beautiful, filled with a silent elegance. Friends and colleagues admired him, but no one noticed the melancholy that hung in certain moments of silence, when the city's noise quieted and he could hear the echoes of the sea in his mind. His life was complete in its way, but he knew there was a space that would never be completely filled, a light shadow of what could have been. Over time, the memory of that summer became a subtle thing, a piece of the past they carried unknowingly. Lauren and Michael didn't spend their lives remembering each other. They had learned to live without that burden. But on rare nights under a clear, starry sky, a persistent memory would arise, bringing with it a feeling of something unfinished, as if the stars still held an unrevealed secret. The world kept spinning, indifferent to interrupted stories and hearts that learned to move on. But even with all the silence and distance time created, something deep and forgotten still existed, dormant, waiting for a breath of fate that, one day, might rekindle what was left on the beaches of Santorini. Decades passed with the subtlety of a sunset slipping beyond the horizon. Lauren carried on with her life with the strength and resilience of someone who had faced challenges and overcome them. She built an enviable career as a photographer, traveling the world and capturing landscapes that told the stories of people and places. Her attentive eye, always searching for beauty and details, became her trademark. Yet, there was a silent corner in her heart where the Sea of Santorini whispered when nostalgia dared to appear. The years also transformed Michael. He became a well-known architect, recognized for designing structures that merged modernity with soul. His creations were more than just buildings. They were poems written in stone and glass. Each line and shadow was calculated to reflect a sense of permanence that he secretly longed for in his own life. Time brought success and recognition, but also a routine that trapped him in a cycle of constant work and achievements. Santorini, that place of summer and discoveries, became a memory that occasionally surfaced in his dreams. Lauren and Michael's lives shaped themselves as the years passed, each with their own families and accomplishments. Lauren married, had children who filled her days with laughter and worries, and discovered that familial love was deep and all-encompassing. Michael, on the other hand, found a partner who admired his mind and passion for architecture. Together, they built a life based on mutual understanding and companionship. Yet, in quiet moments when the world seemed more still, both felt a subtle absence, something they didn't even know how to name. For Lauren, Santorini was an occasional glimpse in travel magazines or casual conversations with friends. When she saw a picture of the island, a wave of memories would brush her mind. The sand under her feet, the soft touch of a familiar hand. But she would always push these thoughts aside with a nostalgic smile, too busy to let a distant summer consume her. Michael, too, moved forward, absorbed in his projects, building structures that, in a way, reflected the search for a home he felt he had lost. Time ensured their lives remained apart, like lines that once crossed and then followed different paths. Achievements, losses, and challenges shaped their personalities, making them wiser and, to some extent, more cautious with memories. They had new chapters in their stories, new characters and plots, but that summer remained preserved, dormant, without interfering with the present. What lingered was a faint echo, a memory that never completely faded. Fate, however, has a curious way of bringing to light what has been forgotten. During a dinner conversation with friends, Lauren mentioned plans for a new photography project. A friend, excited, suggested Santorini, sharing stories of her recent trip to the island. Lauren smiled, feeling her heart beat a little faster, but she disguised it with a laugh. On the other side of the ocean, Michael, now a mature architect, received a job offer to work on the restoration of a small church on the island, an opportunity he couldn't pass up. Santorini re-emerged for both of them, like a gentle ghost calling them back. The place that witnessed the beginning of something that never faded, despite time and change, began to insinuate itself into their lives once again. The summer, buried under layers of years and experiences, started to resurface, setting the stage for a reunion that, though unexpected, seemed to have been orchestrated by destiny itself. Lauren stepped off the boat in Santorini with a mix of excitement and curiosity. Decades had passed, but the island, with its white buildings and blue rooftops, still looked the same. The salty breeze brought back a familiar scent, carrying memories she thought she had left behind. She was there for a new photography project, a series on places that evoked deep emotions, but she knew that deep down this return was about more than just work. As she walked through the narrow streets, she felt a lightness she hadn't experienced in years. Every corner of the island seemed to whisper fragments of a distant past, and she found herself smiling as she recognized a small bakery where she and Michael used to pass by. Time seemed to have stopped there, but she hadn't. Lauren was now a mature, experienced woman who carried with her not just memories but an entire life of stories and accomplishments. And yet, there was something about Santorini that made her heart beat differently. Michael arrived on the island a few days later, his mind focused on the restoration project he had accepted. The old church, with its weathered stone walls and faded stained glass, needed his attention. He was eager to breathe new life into the structure, but as he stepped onto Santorini, he was overcome by an unexpected wave of nostalgia. The island was the same, and with it came a feeling he hadn't felt in a long time, a silent call from the past. His daily routine took him to different parts of the island, but one afternoon, as he passed by an empty beach, he felt a tightness in his chest. It was the same place where they had said goodbye decades before. He paused, staring at the calm sea, letting the memory of Lauren wash over him. That last morning, the unspoken words, and the look that had stayed with him came back with an almost painful intensity. He shook his head, trying to push the memory aside, but the sense that something was about to change remained. Lauren, meanwhile, was walking along the cliffs looking for angles for her photos. The camera in her hands was an extension of herself, capturing the beauty of Santorini in the soft light of the late afternoon. In a moment of pause, she closed her eyes and let the breeze play with her hair. She could hear the laughter of tourists in the distance, and for an instant, she felt a presence she couldn't explain. It was as if the island was watching her, waiting for something. The days passed with a calm rhythm, but there was an underlying restlessness. Michael worked tirelessly on his project, but found himself, without realizing it, walking through places they had once shared. And Lauren, busy with her photography, had moments when the past felt more present than ever. The reunion, though still unknown to them, was almost palpable, a tension that Santorini held among its secrets. One afternoon, fate finally decided to act. A community event in the central square brought together visitors and locals. Music, voices, and laughter filled the air, and amidst the crowd, Lauren suddenly stopped. Across the square, the familiar profile of Michael stood out. Her heart raced, and for an instant time returned to the summer that had united them. Michael, feeling a gaze on him, turned slowly, and his eyes met Lauren's. Surprise, emotion, and disbelief danced across their faces as the island watched, holding its breath for what would come next. The central square was full of life, but for Lauren and Michael, everything around them seemed to fade into a blur of lights and voices. The surprise in their eyes quickly turned into a mix of disbelief and emotion, a recognition that transcended time. The years had carved new lines into their faces, but the essence of who they were still shone intact in their eyes now locked on each other. Lauren felt her heart beat erratically, as if trying to make up for lost moments in a single second. The walk toward Michael was automatic, her feet moving as if drawn by an invisible force. When they finally stood face to face, the silence between them was deafening. The memory of that last dawn in Santorini resurfaced, bringing back the pain of farewell and the unfulfilled promise they both carried somewhere deep within. Michael studied Lauren's face, now marked by years of experiences, yet still so familiar and dear. His voice, which had echoed in his thoughts countless times, now seemed stuck, unable to break the moment that connected them. The beach in the distance reflected the moon's silvery light, and he wondered how many times that same sky had watched them, patiently waiting for this reunion. The first feeling that enveloped them was surprise, followed by a wave of overwhelming nostalgia. Every shared smile, every sunset they had witnessed together, every unspoken word over the years came rushing back like an invisible current. They didn't need words to understand what this coincidence meant. It was as if fate, after so long, had finally decided to pick up the story it had paused on a farewell morning. Lauren felt tears forming but held her gaze, searching Michael's eyes for any sign that he felt the weight of the moment too. He smiled softly, a small gesture, but one that said more than any phrase could. It was the smile of someone who recognized the deep significance of this meeting, and, for a moment, the tension that held her heart loosened, replaced by a warm familiarity. The world around them regained sound and color, but now it was different. The music playing, the laughter, and the cheerful conversation of others seemed only a backdrop for something bigger. Michael extended his hand, a simple gesture filled with meaning, and Lauren took it without hesitation. It was as if time had not passed, as if all the decades of distance had dissolved in a single touch. Under the starry sky of Santorini, where fate had once brought them together and then torn them apart, they stood side by side, in silence but with hearts beating in unison. The moon watched, witness to a love that defied time and circumstance. What came next was uncertain, but at that moment, both knew that the memories were not just echoes of the past but seeds for a new beginning. The night was a whirlwind of emotions for Lauren and Michael. After their meeting in the square, the silence that had brought them together was filled with slow walks through the village, where the warm lights from windows cast welcoming shadows on the narrow streets. They didn't need words. There was an understanding so deep that the decades that had separated them felt like a necessary interlude, a pause that made this moment even more valuable. Lauren felt the cool night air on her skin, and with each step, nostalgia enveloped her. It was as if the young woman of 20 still lingered there, peeking between memories, looking at the man who had once been her world. Michael walked beside her, his eyes studying every detail of Lauren's face, now marked by time but still glowing with an undying spark. He wondered how many times, in solitary moments of silence, he had missed that look that made him feel at home. When they reached the beach where everything had started and ended, they stopped, watching the waves dance under the moonlight. Lauren sat on the sand, feeling the cool texture between her fingers. The sea was unchanged, constant, a guardian of shared memories. Michael sat beside her, the sound of the waves filling the space that words couldn't reach. It was a scene they both knew well, but now it was different. Now there was an entire lifetime between them. Lauren closed her eyes for a moment, letting the memories wash over her. She saw herself laughing with Michael, running along the sand, her heart pounding with carefree joy. The star-filled nights and the unspoken promises came back forcefully, mingling with the salty breeze, creating a bittersweet sensation of longing and renewal. When she opened her eyes, she found Michael watching her, as if trying to read her thoughts. His gaze was gentle, full of understanding and respect. Michael felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. Life, with its unpredictable turns, had brought them back to the place that had once united them. There were questions in his mind, untold stories and unexplored feelings, but at that moment, only Lauren's presence by his side mattered. He remembered mornings waking up to the sound of the sea, thinking of her without realizing it. Seeing Lauren now so close made everything clearer. What they had lost and what they could still have. When they finally spoke, their conversation was light, punctuated with shy laughter and meaningful pauses. They talked about their careers, the cities they had lived in, the challenges and joys that had shaped them. What surprised them both was how, even after so long, there was a familiar synchronicity, an ease in understanding each other that neither time nor distance had erased. The sea continued to touch the shore, a reminder that some things, no matter how they change, keep their essence. The night deepened, but time felt suspended, granting them a rare moment far from expectations and the responsibilities of the world. Under the starry sky of Santorini, Lauren and Michael rediscovered what they had lost, but also realized that, even though memories were part of who they were, there was still room for something new. The past didn't need to be an anchor. It could be the push that propelled them to explore what the future still held for them. The Santorini sky shone brighter that night, as if the stars recognized the significance of the moment. Lauren and Michael remained seated on the beach, watching the moon's silver glow on the waves. The island, which held so many memories, now seemed ready to offer something more. They had rediscovered the connection they thought they'd lost, but now it was time to decide what they would do with it. Lauren felt a peace she hadn't known in years. The past, which once felt like a shadow chasing her, now seemed like a part of her she accepted with tenderness. She looked at Michael and noticed that the lines of time on his face were not just signs of age, but marks of a life well lived. They had moved on, built their own stories, but this moment felt like a gift, a chance life was giving them to start anew. Michael, too, felt his heart lightened. The memories of decades past were still there, but they no longer hurt. He understood that the love they had shared was not just a memory of youth. It was a force that, even apart, had kept them connected. Looking at Lauren, he realized that life, with all its complexity, still held surprises. It wasn't too late to allow a new chapter to begin. Slowly, Michael stood and extended his hand to Lauren. She took it, a small smile curving her lips. Together, they walked along the shore under the starry canopy, their steps in sync, as if this moment had been planned by fate from the start. Words were unnecessary. There was a silent language between them, made of glances, smiles, and subtle gestures. The night breeze surrounded them, carrying the promise of a future that, although uncertain, felt full of hope. They stopped at a spot where the music from a small beachfront restaurant reached the air. The soft sound of a romantic song filled the space, and without hesitation, Michael drew her into a dance. Lauren laughed, surprised, but soon gave in to the moment. Barefoot on the sand, their bodies swaying to a familiar rhythm, they danced under the stars as they had so many years ago. The difference now was that time was no longer an enemy. It was proof that true love could withstand everything. Their hearts beat in harmony, and the island seemed to embrace them with its warmth. Lauren rested her head on Michael's shoulder, taking in the familiar scent that somehow still held traces of their youth. She closed her eyes, letting the melody and emotions envelop her. In that instant, she knew that no matter what the future held, she was exactly where she was meant to be. The sea continued its endless dance, indifferent to time, but that night, it seemed to be part of the celebration. Santorini, with its beauty and mysteries, once again became the setting for a love that, even dormant for decades, found a way to bloom again. And under the starry sky, with hearts finally at peace, Lauren and Michael made a silent promise that this time they wouldn't let time separate them again. Throughout this story, we witnessed how Lauren and Michael, separated by time and circumstances, found their way back to each other in an unexpected reunion. Their lives, filled with accomplishments and challenges, showed us that even when we think certain opportunities are lost, life can surprise us. The essence of their love, kept in a forgotten corner of their hearts, proves that true feelings can withstand time and distance, patiently waiting for a new beginning. It's a powerful reminder that love, when genuine, doesn't disappear. It finds ways to survive, be reborn, and thrive. If this story touched your heart and gave you a new perspective on the power of love and hope, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss more heartwarming stories like this one. Share this video with friends and family so they too can be inspired by this unforgettable journey. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.